Welcome back to Weekends with Whitney. Well, a lot of us have made resolutions. Some of us have already broken them. We're going to talk with Dr. Nick this morning about more than that, about really engaging and listening into the new year, not only to help those with us, but to help ourselves.
Yeah, it's great approach, Whitney. Great way of bringing it in. Communication. Let's talk about communication today.
So a lot of us, Nick, when we think of communicating, we think of talking. But you say more importantly, it's listening.
Listening, and let's go even further to add the real spice to it. It's understanding that everybody's language could be different, even when you're speaking the English language. Let me give you a quick story. I heard this years ago. Loved it, Whitney. Americans go over to Arabia. Americans working with Arabs, okay? In the Arab culture, you get up right up to the face and talk. In the American culture, we like at least a yard, okay? Yes. So the Americans go over there and felt very offended by the Arabs going into the face, and guess what the Arabs felt? Very offended that the Americans were constantly backing up. Do you hear the clash? And that's why I say that to start by saying communication is most importantly about clarification. What am I saying? What am I not saying? And added to that, it's about the person listening, staying in the chair and not thinking about what they're going to say before even listening to what's been said.
I'm so guilty of that.
So am I. Why do you think I said let's talk about it?
I want them to think I'm engaged, I'm with them, that kind of Me Too factor. You know, I get where you're coming from, and then we want to share our story when we really just need to shut up.
When we and really listen. Now, I want to make it clear to people, I think there are some people in our lives where we don't have to do that. Once you said to me, Nikki, we get each other. Now, you notice we don't sit around and say, all right, let me tell you now what I just heard. But there are a lot of instances when we need to say it, especially in marriages when there is a heated conversation or when there is a clash of values or when just a bad day. I mean, not even just in marriage, just in a bad day. It's let me get clear, what are you saying before I respond to it? So I just know myself. I've said, and the other beauty about that, when I say to you, oh, Whitney, wait, let me give that back to you. This is what I just heard. You're also able to say, wow, Nikki, I didn't really mean it that way. Let me reword it. I was just heated. Yeah, we really are helping each other learn how to find that common ground.
Right.
Instead of the swords up or, well, escalating. Well, let me get in this then. Or you've said this, it's my turn. And then you've got an escalated war.
We were
your eyes are so wide. You get this. People, I know they get this.
Well, you and I were recently talking about some situations with me where some things were terribly miscommunicated, terribly misconstrued, misunderstood, and you're just And remember what I said to? I said it's almost like the Shakespearean tragedy. It wasn't intentional. It was just a clash of almost languages. Yes.
And we think the English language is common. It's not. We all have different interpretations of a word. Right?
Absolutely, we do. Yeah, and with our children especially, I'm certain that regardless of their ages, it's important that we make sure they understand and listen, and then we hear what they're saying.
That's right.
So many times we
and again, we just make sure too that I say clarification because I think it's so important we can hear the emotional charge. And we really want to try to be clear, but we need the emotion, which is why I don't like texting. Because texting doesn't have tone, it doesn't have tonality. That's the struggle with texting, but that's a whole different segment.
Well, the tone that it has is whatever tone the person reading it has.
Whitney, I never thought of it. That's exactly the problem with it. I don't know how you're getting the text. I know how I'm sending it, but you could be reading it a completely different way.
And if I'm in a joyful mood, you may be trying to say something really serious, and I just blow it off as ha ha ha.
Or I might be joyfully sarcastic, and you're like, well, that wasn't very nice.
Right, and then I'm all offended, and yeah. And this
communication is great. I'm fascinated with communication. I think that is an incredible life skill that we need to all learn from early days on.
And you know, something that's helped me, and you've helped me get this, is so many times when we get sideways with somebody, I mean, maybe it's just the clerk at the store or the person behind you who's honking the horn. It's not about you.
It's great.
How many times do we think it's
great.
about us? It's not about us.
So
It's their junk.
And you're using a language too that's great when you talk sideways. I just want to make sure people understand that. Sideways, it basically means it's not about you. It's coming from somewhere else, or it should have gone somewhere else. I really needed to say something at work today, and instead I come home and take it out on my wife. I mean, it's the perfect example. And the wife somehow has to sit back and say, okay, this is not about me. Let me figure out, honey, what are you really saying? What's really going on? Huh? You almost step out of the way.
Yeah, yeah.
But you almost have to step out, like getting away from the dagger, because it feels like it's a dagger.
Right.
And it hurts, and that's when we have to not personalize.
And don't you think that, I mean, I think that's a great question you just asked, what's really going on?
What's really going on? And Whitney, the sword goes down, and that person starts reflecting, it's about me. And then they get back grounded in their body. We'll be right back.
Much more, because it's Whitney, right after this.